The day Patricia Wentworth called the fire marshal on my backyard barbecue, she forgot one simple rule. When you invite an inspector into the smoke, you do not get to choose which grill they open. It was 5:47 on a Saturday afternoon, the kind of Tennessee evening that makes every fence rail glow gold and every neighbor suddenly remember they own lawn chairs. My smoker sat in the back corner of my patio, 30 feet from the house, 6 feet from the fence, clean drip pan underneath, water pan full, hickory chunks burning low and sweet. The brisket had been on since sunrise. 12 hours of patience, salt, pepper, smoke, and heat. The air smelled like pepper bark, warm beef fat, cut grass, and the faint metal tang of the smoker lid every time I lifted it. I had just cracked the firebox to adjust the airflow when I heard tires hiss to a stop out front. Not a delivery truck. Not a neighbor. Something official. A second later, my daughter Lily looked up from the picnic table where she was drawing chalk flowers on a paper plate and said, "Dad, there is a red truck outside." I wiped my hands on a towel and walked around the side yard. There it was, Pine County Fire Marshal, white lettering on the door, parked at the curb with its amber lights blinking soft in the evening sun. And standing beside it like she had personally summoned justice from the clouds was Patricia Wentworth. She was hard to miss. Patricia was a heavy-set white woman in her early 50s who dressed like every HOA meeting was being filmed for a luxury real estate commercial. That day she wore a turquoise blazer bright enough to compete with the sky, white slacks that had never met real yard work, oversized sunglasses, gold bracelets stacked so thick they clicked when she moved, and red nails wrapped around a clipboard like it was a court order. Her perfume drifted across the sidewalk before her words did, sweet and heavy, fighting with the hickory smoke and losing. She smiled when she saw me, but it was not a neighbor's smile. It was the kind of smile people wear when they think the paperwork has already won. "Mr. Brooks," she called, loud enough for 2 dog walkers and a kid on a scooter to slow down. "I told them your little smoke machine was a neighborhood hazard. My name is Wyatt Brooks, and I have fixed heating and air conditioning systems for 16 years. I know airflow. I know ventilation. I know what hot metal smells like when something is wrong, and I know what clean wood smoke smells like when something is right. My smoker was not fancy, but it was safe. I had rebuilt it from my father's old offset rig, sanded the rust, replaced the seals, added a proper spark screen, and measured the clearance myself with a tape measure because that is the kind of man my father raised me to be. Do it right, or do it twice." The fire marshal, a calm man named Ray Holloway according to the patch on his shirt, stepped through my gate and asked if he could take a look. I said yes before Patricia finished adjusting her sunglasses. That bothered her. I could see it in the way her smile tightened at the edges. She expected panic. She expected excuses. She expected me to defend myself like some guilty man caught doing something wrong in his own backyard. Instead, I led Marshal Holloway straight to the smoker, lifted the lid, and let the clean hickory roll upward in a slow blue ribbon. He looked at the firebox, the distance from the fence, the ash bucket, the water hose coiled beside the patio, and the digital thermometer clipped to the grate. Patricia hovered near the gate, bracelets clicking, waiting for the moment I would be embarrassed. But the strange thing about smoke is that it tells the truth if you know how to read it. Mine was thin and blue. Hers was the kind of trouble still hiding behind a privacy fence. Marshal Holloway took his time, which told me he was good at his job. He crouched beside the firebox, checked the latch, looked at the ash bucket, then followed the smoke with his eyes as it drifted up past the maple tree and thinned into the evening air. Patricia stood at the gate pretending not to stare, but her bracelets kept clicking against the clipboard like nervous little teeth. Lily had gone quiet behind me, sitting at the picnic table with her crayons in a neat row, watching adults turn Saturday dinner into a neighborhood hearing. That was the part that got under my skin. Not the inspection. Not even Patricia and her turquoise blazer shining at my fence like a warning sign. It was my daughter seeing our backyard treated like a crime scene because one woman did not like the smell of working-class happiness. I bought that house in Pine Hollow Estates 3 years after the divorce, when all I wanted was a clean start, a safe school district, and enough yard for Lily to run barefoot without hearing traffic. It was not the biggest house on the block. It had a cracked driveway, a tired deck, and a garage door that moaned every time it opened. But the first evening I walked through the place, I stood in the backyard and saw room for a smoker in the corner, a little table under the maple, and maybe one day a swing set if I could save enough after repairs. That was enough for me. I work heating and air conditioning, which means most of my days are spent in crawl spaces, attics, basements, and mechanical rooms where the air tastes like dust and old insulation. I have pulled bad compressors in July heat that made my shirt stick to my back before breakfast. I have fixed furnaces in January while my fingers went numb around the wrench. So when Saturday came, and Lily was with me for the weekend, barbecue was not just food. It was a way to slow the world down. My father taught me that. He was a quiet man from outside Knoxville who believed smoke had a memory. Hickory for beef, applewood for pork, patience for everything. The smoker Patricia called a hazard used to sit behind his garage, dented and blackened, smelling like charcoal and rainwater. After he passed, I hauled it home in a borrowed trailer and spent 2 months bringing it back. New gasket, new thermometer, fresh paint rated for high heat, proper screen on the stack. I even checked city guidelines before I fired it up the first time. 10 feet from structures, clear from dry brush, stable surface, no open flame unattended. I followed every line because men like me do not get the luxury of being sloppy. Patricia moved into the big brick house on Cedar Bend the same summer I moved in. White SUV, stone mailbox, landscape crew every Thursday. She became HOA president within 6 months, and by the next spring, she had turned community standards into a personal weather system. Everybody felt her pressure. Grass height, trash cans, porch lights, planter colors. But me and my smokers seemed to bother her in a special way. She never said it straight at first. She said things like atmosphere, property values, refined living. Then she would look over my fence at the old smoker and smile like she had smelled something worse than hickory. Marshall Holloway stood up and wiped his hands on a cloth. So far, everything here looks orderly, he said. Patricia's smile twitched. I did not smile back. I just looked at the thin blue smoke rising clean into the Tennessee sky and waited, because I had already learned that Patricia never stopped at one complaint. Patricia Wentworth was not the kind of woman who walked into a room. She arrived and somehow made the air rearrange itself around her. The first HOA meeting I ever attended in Pine Hollow Estates, she sat at the head of the clubhouse table in a coral dress, a cream blazer, and gold earrings big enough to catch the ceiling lights every time she turned her head. She was a heavy-set white woman with perfectly sprayed blonde hair, bright red nails, and a voice that sounded sweet until you heard what it was asking for. Behind her were framed photos of the neighborhood entrance, the pool, the tennis court, and a bulletin board full of cheerful announcements written in the same careful handwriting as the warning letters she loved to send. She called everyone neighbor, but the word came out like a job title below hers. That night, she explained that Pine Hollow was entering a new era of elevated community presentation. She talked about curb appeal, investment protection, and lifestyle harmony. I remember the smell of lemon cleaner on the folding tables and burnt coffee in the corner. I remember the little squeak her marker made as she circled a picture of my backyard smoker on a printed slideshow. She had taken the photo over my fence. My smoker sat under the maple tree, black steel, clean cover folded beside it, wood stack raised off the ground. Nothing illegal, nothing unsafe. But Patricia had cropped the picture tight, so the old metal looked darker, rougher, uglier, like something dragged out of a salvage yard instead of rebuilt by hand. This, she said, tapping the screen with one red fingernail, is the kind of visual and environmental nuisance we must address before it changes the character of our neighborhood. A few people shifted in their chairs. Nobody looked at me. That was how Patricia worked. She did not need to yell. She used embarrassment like a velvet rope, quietly deciding who belonged on which side. After that meeting, the notices started. First came offensive odor complaint, printed on bright white paper with the HOA seal. Then outdoor equipment violation. Then smoke nuisance. Even though my cooking days were always weekends, always daylight, always with the smoker watched and cleaned. Each notice carried a fine, small enough to seem petty and large enough to feel personal. $75, $150, then $200 if not corrected. I called the management office and asked what rule I had broken. The woman on the phone sounded tired before I finished my sentence. She said the board was reviewing evolving standards. Evolving standards meant Patricia had not found the rule yet, but wanted the punishment now. The social media post came the following Friday. Someone texted it to me while I was changing a blower motor in a grocery store ceiling. My hands were black with dust, and sweat ran down my neck while I stared at my phone under buzzing fluorescent lights. Patricia had posted a picture of smoke over my fence with the caption, "Some residents believe personal hobbies matter more than clean air and family comfort." The comments filled up fast. A few defended me. Most stayed careful. One person wrote, "Is that the house with the old grill thing?" Patricia answered, "We are handling it." Those 4 words told me everything. I was not a neighbor anymore. I was a project. The campaign against my smokers stopped being about smoke the moment Patricia proposed an emergency amendment to the HOA rules. It happened on a Tuesday night inside the clubhouse, where the air smelled like carpet cleaner, stale coffee, and the little lemon cookies nobody ever finished. I sat in the back row with a folder on my knees, still wearing my work boots because I had come straight from replacing a condenser fan at an auto parts store. My shirt had a grease mark near the pocket. My hands were scrubbed clean, but still looked like the kind of hands Patricia never wanted near her idea of refined living. She stood at the front in a bright green blazer, white silk blouse, gold necklace, and shoes that clicked sharply every time she crossed the room. A projector hummed behind her. On the screen was a title, Outdoor Air Quality Protection Initiative. It sounded official enough to scare people who did not read fine print. Patricia smiled at the room and said the board had received multiple complaints about smoke, odor, and unsightly outdoor cooking equipment. She never said my name, but the next slide showed my fence, my maple tree, and the corner of my smoker cover. The photo was grainy, taken from across the street or maybe from someone's second-floor window. I felt my shoulders tighten, then forced them down. Men like me can lose a room just by looking angry. Patricia knew that. She used it. "This is not personal," she said, which was how I knew it absolutely was. "This is about protecting families, preserving home values, and maintaining the elevated standard buyers expect when they choose Pine Hollow Estates." She passed out copies of a proposed rule banning charcoal smokers, wood-fired cookers, and any outdoor cooking appliance producing visible smoke for longer than 15 minutes. 15 minutes. You cannot smoke a brisket in 15 minutes unless your plan is to disappoint everyone at the table. A retired teacher named Mrs. Darlene Price raised her hand and asked whether the city already had fire safety rules. Patricia gave her the patient smile people use on slow children. "City rules provide a minimum," she said. "Our community deserves better than minimum." A few people nodded because better sounded harmless when you did not know who would be paying for it. I opened my folder. Inside were printed city guidelines, smoker clearance recommendations, photographs of my setup, maintenance receipts, and the manufacturer's safety sheet for the high heat paint I used. When public comment opened, I stood up. The chair legs scraped under me, loud in the room. I explained that my smoker met city requirements. I explained the distance from the fence, the ash storage, the water hose, the spark screen, the daylight cooking schedule. I kept my voice level, the way I talk to customers when their unit fails in August and they want someone to blame. Patricia watched me with her lips pressed into a glossy line. When I finished, she tilted her head and said, "Wyatt, this neighborhood is not a roadside cookout." Someone near the front laughed once, then tried to hide it behind a cough. Heat climbed my neck, but I did not give her the reaction she wanted. I placed my documents on the table and sat down. That was when I noticed the faint smell drifting in from the open clubhouse window. Not hickory, not charcoal. Sharp, sour, and oily, like gas burning wrong somewhere behind the cedar hedges on Cedar Bend. After the meeting, I stayed behind to collect my papers while Patricia accepted compliments near the coffee urn like she had just saved the neighborhood from a factory fire. Her bracelets clicked against her paper cup. Her perfume mixed with the bitter smell of burnt coffee and that strange oily gas odor still drifting through the open window. I walked outside under the clubhouse porch lights and looked toward Cedar Bend, where Patricia's big brick house sat behind a row of trimmed hedges and landscape lights bright enough to land a plane. For 1 second, the wind shifted and the smell sharpened. Not smoke, not wood, gas and grease, hot metal, and something scorched. My heating and air conditioning brain noticed it before my pride did. Bad combustion has a language. It stings the nose differently. It leaves a taste near the back of your throat, metallic and sour. But I was not about to go sneaking around her property like she did mine. I drove home, put my folder on the kitchen counter, and washed my hands while Lily brushed her teeth upstairs. The house was quiet except for the faucet and the low hum of the refrigerator. On the counter, my phone buzzed. Another notice. Patricia had pushed the board to issue a temporary restriction while the amendment was under review. Effective immediately, all wood or charcoal smoke visible from neighboring property could result in daily fines of $100. Daily. I stared at the email until the words blurred, then printed it and added it to the folder. The next morning, I tried being reasonable again. I called the HOA management company and asked for the specific bylaw section that allowed a temporary rule without a vote. The woman on the phone sighed and said the board had emergency authority when health concerns were involved. I asked for the written health report. Silence. Then she said Patricia would respond directly. Patricia responded 2 hours later with a message copied to the entire board. Mr. Brooks continues to prioritize his hobby over community wellness. She wrote it like a verdict. By lunchtime, I was standing at the city permitting counter, where the air smelled like toner, dust, and old carpet. A clerk pulled up the municipal code and confirmed what I already knew. My smoker was legal if supervised, properly placed, and not producing a nuisance beyond ordinary residential use. She even printed the guideline for me. I asked whether Pine Hollow Estates could ban something city code allowed. She shrugged and said private associations could set stricter standards if their documents allowed it, but enforcement still had to match their own bylaws. That phrase stayed with me. Their own bylaws. That evening, I opened the HOA documents from the closing packet I had barely touched since buying the house. Pages whispered across the table while the ceiling fan ticked overhead. I searched cooking, smoke, grills, outdoor equipment, nuisance. Nothing gave Patricia the authority she was pretending to have. There were rules about open storage, unsafe conditions, and commercial activity, but no ban on a clean backyard smoker. I should have felt relieved. Instead, I felt the kind of calm that comes right before you stop asking people to be fair and start making them prove they are right. Then Mrs. Darlene Price knocked on my back gate. She was in her 70s, small, white-haired, and sharp-eyed, carrying a foil-covered plate of lemon bars like she was delivering state secrets. She looked toward Cedar Bend and lowered her voice. "Wyatt, honey, that smell at the clubhouse was not yours. Patricia has a new outdoor kitchen behind those hedges, and every Sunday it coughs black smoke up the fence." She handed me the plate. Under the foil was a folded note with 3 dates, 4 times, and 1 sentence written in careful blue ink. She told the installer the HOA does not need ordinary permits. The note from Mrs. Darlene Price sat on my kitchen table beside the HOA bylaws, and for a long minute I did nothing but listen to the ceiling fan tick above me. 3 dates. 4 times. 1 sentence that smelled worse than the gas drifting off Cedar Bend. I did not want to fight with Patricia Wentworth. I wanted Saturday dinners, Lily laughing through barbecue sauce on her chin, and the kind of quiet evening where the only smoke in the air came from Hickory doing honest work. But Patricia had turned my backyard into a public accusation, and now a 73-year-old woman with lemon bars had handed me the first piece of truth that did not come from my side of the fence. That Sunday, I did not trespass. I did not sneak. I walked the public sidewalk at 6:20 in the evening with my phone in my pocket and a grocery bag in my hand, like any neighbor heading back from the corner market. The sun was low, throwing orange light across the stone mailboxes and trimmed lawns of Pine Hollow Estates. Sprinklers hissed in perfect little arcs. Somewhere a dog barked once and got called inside. Then the smell hit me near Patricia's hedge line. Sharp. Sour. Wrong. It cut through the warm air with that oily bite I had noticed at the clubhouse. Not wood smoke. Not charcoal. Gas that was not burning clean. I slowed just enough to tie my shoe near the curb. Through a narrow break in the hedge, I could see the top of her outdoor kitchen, polished stone counters, stainless steel hood, built-in grill, decorative lights, the whole luxury setup glowing like a magazine photo. Then the burners coughed. A puff of dark smoke rolled up the back wall and left a faint stain beneath the vent cap. On the white fence panel behind it, black soot had collected in a fan shape, thin at the edges and dark near the center. I did not take a picture through her hedge. I did not need to. I had seen enough to know something was installed wrong or maintained badly, and either way, it was not my smoker making the neighborhood air taste like scorched metal. The next morning, I went back to the city permitting office during lunch. The clerk remembered me. Same tired eyes. Same printer clicking behind her. I asked for public permit records for outdoor gas appliances on Cedar Bend. She typed Patricia's address, waited, typed again, then frowned at the screen. No recent permit for an outdoor kitchen. No final inspection. No gas line modification approval. Just a patio resurfacing permit from 5 months earlier, closed as decorative work only. Decorative. I almost laughed right there under the fluorescent lights. I paid for the copies, slid them into my folder, and drove back to work with the paper riding on the passenger seat like a quiet witness. That evening, I cleaned my smoker until the black steel reflected the porch light in dull streaks. I emptied the ash bucket, checked the spark screen, measured the clearance from fence to firebox again, and filmed each step on my phone. The tape measure snapped back with a sharp metallic click. 30 feet to the house. 6 feet from the fence. Water hose visible. Fire extinguisher mounted by the back door. I spoke the measurements out loud for the camera, not angry, not dramatic, just clear. Patricia had spent weeks trying to make smoke look like guilt. Fine. I was going to make safety look like evidence. Before bed, I placed the city guidelines, the HOA bylaws, the permit printouts, Mrs. Darlene's note, and every violation notice into separate folders. Then I wrote one sentence on a yellow legal pad. Request voluntary fire marshal inspection and verification of reported smoke source. The ink dried under the kitchen light, while Lily slept upstairs and the neighborhood outside went quiet. I finally understood Patricia's mistake. She believed authority was something you aimed at people. I knew authority worked better when you invited it to look at everything. Monday morning, I called Pine County Fire Prevention from the parking lot of a hardware store, with a new roll of foil tape on the passenger seat and the smell of coffee cooling in the cup holder. My thumb hovered over the number for a second because part of me still hated how official everything had become. Backyard barbecue was supposed to be slow smoke, paper plates, and my daughter asking for the crispy end pieces. It was not supposed to involve folders, permit records, and a grown woman in gold bracelets turning neighborhood gossip into daily fines. But Patricia had chosen the tool, so I was going to let the tool work the way it was built to work. A receptionist transferred me to Marshal Ray Holloway, the same calm man who had looked over my smoker on Saturday. I told him I wanted a voluntary safety inspection in writing. Full setup, clearances, fuel storage, ash disposal, airflow, everything. He paused, and I could hear office phones ringing faintly behind him. Most people try to avoid extra inspection, he said. Most people are not being fined for smoke that might not be theirs, I answered. That got a small quiet sound from him, not quite a laugh, but close. I explained the repeated complaints, the temporary HOA restriction, the city guidelines, and the permit printouts showing no approved outdoor gas work at Patricia's address. I did not accuse her of anything. I did not need to. I just asked one careful question. If a complaint claimed recurring smoke and odor in a residential area, did the fire marshal verify the actual source before calling it resolved? The line went silent long enough for a truck to rumble past the hardware store. Then he said, "Send me what you have." By lunchtime, I had scanned everything at the office supply store near the highway. The machine pulled each page through with a soft mechanical hiss. Violation notices, HOA bylaws, photographs of my smoker, my measurement video, city guidelines, public permit records, Mrs. Darlene's note, with her name covered because I was not about to drag an elderly neighbor into Patricia's spotlight unless she chose it herself. I wrote a short email, clean and boring, the kind of message that gives nobody a reason to call you emotional. Requesting voluntary inspection and source verification related to repeated smoke complaints. I hit send, watched the little progress bar finish, and felt something in my chest settle. Not victory. Not yet. Just direction. Patricia, meanwhile, was busy building her stage. That afternoon, Pine Hollow residents received an email announcing a clean air community cookout at the clubhouse the following Saturday. Her words were polished smooth, celebrating safe, tasteful, smoke-conscious outdoor entertaining. There would be grilled chicken, vegetable skewers, sparkling lemonade, and a live demonstration of approved luxury outdoor cooking equipment. At the bottom, in bold, she wrote that recent neighborhood concerns had inspired the board to model proper standards. She did not name me. She did not have to. By evening, the post was all over the resident group. People clicked interested. People asked what to bring. Patricia replied with little heart emojis and phrases like refined grilling and responsible enjoyment. I sat at my kitchen table reading it while Lily practiced spelling words upstairs. The refrigerator hummed. The folders sat stacked beside my elbow. Outside, my clean smoker rested under its cover in the corner of the patio, quiet as a witness waiting to be called. I forwarded the cookout announcement to Marshal Holloway with one sentence. This appears connected to the same complaints and proposed restriction. His reply came 20 minutes later. We will include the location in our review. I leaned back in the chair and listened to the house breathe around me. Patricia thought Saturday would prove the difference between her polished world and my old black smoker. She was right about one thing. Saturday would show the whole neighborhood the difference. Saturday arrived bright and polished, exactly the kind of day Patricia Wentworth liked, because sunshine made everything she owned look more expensive. By 10 in the morning, the clubhouse patio smelled like lemon cleaner, fresh mulch, and grilled chicken brushed with some glossy bottled marinade that hissed every time it touched the grate. White tablecloths covered the folding tables. Silver serving trays lined the buffet. A sign near the entrance read Clean Air Community Cookout in elegant blue lettering, and Patricia stood beside it in a flamingo pink blazer, white slacks, oversized sunglasses, gold bracelets, and a smile sharp enough to slice through smoke. She had turned a neighborhood lunch into a courtroom without admitting it. I arrived with Lily just after the crowd had formed, not because I wanted free chicken, but because Patricia had made the event about me without using my name. Lily held my hand and whispered, "Are we in trouble?" I squeezed her fingers once and said, "No, sweetheart. We are just watching people learn." Patricia saw us and lifted her chin. "Wyatt, how nice of you to attend," she said, loud enough for the nearest table to hear. I thought it would be useful for everyone to see what proper outdoor cooking looks like. Behind her, 2 board members stood near a stainless steel grill station under a temporary canopy. It was the same kind of luxury setup she had behind her house, just moved into public view for the performance. Shiny burners, polished lid, decorative stone base. A portable gas line running along the patio edge with a rubber mat placed over part of it like a secret wearing a carpet. I noticed it right away. So did Marshal Holloway when his county truck rolled up 3 minutes later. The crowd shifted when he stepped out. Conversations dropped into little whispers. Patricia blinked once, then recovered, walking toward him with both hands spread like she was greeting a guest of honor. "Marshal Holloway, what a surprise," she said. Her bracelets clicked in the sun. He nodded politely. "Mrs. Wentworth, we are following up on the recurring smoke and outdoor cooking complaints connected to this property and the surrounding area." Her smile held, but the skin around her eyes tightened. "Of course. As you can see, we are demonstrating responsible grilling today." He looked past her at the grill station, then at the hose connection, the canopy, the gas line, and the ventilation space behind the cooking area. "Then this should be straightforward." The first 15 minutes were quiet. He checked my smoker documentation again, because I had brought the folder with me. Clearances, photos, city guidelines, maintenance records. He asked a few questions. I answered them. He made notes and said, "Your residential smoker setup remains compliant based on what I have reviewed." Patricia stopped pretending to look at the lemonade pitcher. A few people turned their heads. Then Holloway moved to her demonstration grill. That was when the air changed. Not dramatic, not loud, just heavier. He crouched near the connection point and asked who installed the gas line. Patricia said it was handled during patio upgrades. He asked for the permit number. She said the HOA handled approvals internally. He asked again, this time without smiling. The board members looked at each other. The grill gave a small, uneven cough when one burner lit, and a dark smudge of smoke curled up beneath the shiny hood. Holloway shut it down with one calm turn of the knob and placed a red notice tag on the side. No shouting, no spectacle, just paper, tape, and authority doing its job. This unit is not approved for use until installation records, gas connection approval, and final inspection are verified, he said. Patricia's pink blazer suddenly looked too bright for the silence around her. Someone near the buffet murmured, "Wait, that is her grill." I looked down at Lily, and she looked up at me with wide eyes. I did not smile at Patricia. I did not need to. The smoke had finally found its real address. The red notice tag on Patricia's grill stayed there all afternoon, bright against the stainless steel, like a stop sign nobody could pretend not to see. Marshal Holloway did not raise his voice. He did not embarrass her on purpose. That made it worse for her, because calm facts have a way of landing harder than anger. He explained that outdoor gas cooking equipment needed proper installation records, approved connections, and final inspection before use in a community setting. Patricia tried to smile through it, but her gold bracelets barely moved now, and the clipboard she loved so much hung at her side like it had lost its power. The crowd did what crowds always do when the story changes. They started whispering. One neighbor asked if the same grill system had been installed at Patricia's house. Another asked why the board had spent weeks chasing my smoker when her equipment had no public approval record. Mrs. Darlene Price stood near the lemonade table, holding a paper cup with both hands, watching Patricia with the quiet satisfaction of someone who had waited a long time for the truth to find daylight. By the following Tuesday, the temporary smoke restriction was withdrawn. By Friday, every fine against me was reversed. The HOA management company sent me a plain email confirming that my backyard smoker did not violate existing covenants when used safely under city guidelines. No apology from Patricia, of course. People like her do not apologize when the facts beat them. They call it a misunderstanding and hope nobody saves the paperwork. But I saved everything. The social media post came down. The board scheduled a special meeting. Patricia arrived in a royal blue jacket, still polished, still perfumed, still trying to act like the room belonged to her. It did not. Residents asked about the complaint process, the proposed amendment, the cookout expenses, and the outdoor kitchen she had used as a symbol of proper standards. By the end of that meeting, she stepped down as president, saying she needed to focus on personal matters. Nobody clapped. That silence was cleaner than any applause could have been. 2 Saturdays later, I fired up my smoker again at sunrise. Hickory caught slow, thin blue smoke curling into the morning while Lily set paper plates on the patio table. The air smelled like pepper, warm wood, and a little bit of peace returning to a backyard that had earned it. Around noon, Mrs. Darlene came through the gate with potato salad. Then the Hendersons brought sweet tea. Even one of the board members showed up with hamburger buns and an awkward apology. I did not throw it in anyone's face. I just lifted the smoker lid and let the brisket speak for itself. Patricia drove by once in her white SUV, windows up, eyes forward. For the first time since I moved into Pine Hollow, she kept going. That was enough. So what would you have done if someone tried to turn your family barbecue into a neighborhood scandal while hiding a bigger problem behind their own fence? Tell me what you think, because stories like this are not just about smoke, grills, or homeowners associations. They are about patience, proof, and the kind of justice that waits until the right person checks the right connection. And if you believe quiet people deserve to win when the truth is on their side, stay close to this channel, because the next story might start with something small too, right before everything turns.